As I mentioned, one of the main reasons for considering doing green screen photography for compositing is when you have to take a lot of people off the background quickly, and that suggests maybe we could automate it. So I'm going to show you first of all how to do it on a single image, and then how we could also make this an action. So the concept is fairly straightforward. It just takes a couple of tries, or like I said, if you record this as an action, then you don't have to worry about it. So the first thing we do is change the mode of our image to LAB color. When you do that, one of the things that changes is the way the channels look. In a normal photograph, a normal RGB file, we see a red, green, and blue channel. Here, if we click on the A channel, you can see there's already some pretty good separation between the person and the background, but it still needs a bit of help. So here's how we do it. First of all, very important, we duplicate the A channels. I did that by dragging it down on top of the new layer icon, and now at this point we can change the mode back to RGB color, because we're going to have this channel here, and this is the one we're going to work on, is called A copy. So we're going to use a couple of keyboard shortcuts here. Shift delete or shift backspace is the shortcut for fill. We're going to make a couple of changes. First of all, we're going to tell it to use white, and then we're going to change the blend mode to overlay. Now what that's going to do is white is only going to lighten the areas in the middle, but you can see there's still just a hint of that gray. Then we go back and do fill again, but this time we're going to do black overlay, and all of a sudden you see that's getting a little darker, so we do black again. Each time I'm just pressing the keyboard shortcut, shift delete or shift backspace, and then I can do it one more time, but this time go back to white to get rid of that little bit of gray in the middle. Now it's not perfect, but it's a pretty darn good channel considering I didn't do anything. I didn't have to paint anything. I didn't have to do anything at all myself. Now ultimately I would still want to get rid of these other areas here. But the last part of the step would then be to hold down Command or Control and click on this to load it as a selection. Then click back on the RGB and look at what we've got here. So now we're back to our layers panel. I would suggest going now to the Refine Edge command, and we'll talk in more detail later on about how to really take advantage of this. But at this point, then we could turn this into a layer mask. Now again, we'll talk about these settings a little bit later on in other lessons. But for now, let's take a closer look and see it's not bad. There's a bit of that little green fringing, but considering the fact that we didn't have to do any manual work in terms of painting, it's still a really good start. So let's take a step back here. I'm going to delete that. I'm also going to go here and delete this extra channel. And now let's see how we could do this as an action. Now if you're not familiar with actions, you go to the Actions panel, and the first time you want to create some kind of folder, they call them sets in Photoshop, to contain your actions. So I'm going to just use this one. Actually, let's just do a new one just to save confusion. Alright, so inside here I'm going to make a new action. Now it's very important, this is really important, that open one of your green screen photographs first before recording this action. If you try to do this and record opening the file, well, every time it'll open the same file. So make sure you start with one open, and we'll just call this something. I could give it a keyboard shortcut if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. At this point I click record. Now whatever I do next will be recorded. So these are the steps. Once again, I go to the mode and change it to LAB color. Then I click on the A channel and duplicate it by dragging it down to the little new icon there. And now once again I can change the mode back to RGB color. Now let's pause for a second, and you can see over in the Actions panel it's actually saying that. Convert mode, select A channel. That's not a channel, that's select A channel. Duplicate, convert mode back. Alright, so now we go Fill. And initially we're going to go white overlay, click OK. Fill again, this time black overlay. Generally we have to do that a couple of times. Now you could even try doing it one more and then finish off with white. In this case I'm going to do one more white just to be sure. Now when you're actually applying an action, you can choose to turn some of these on or off if you want to. But then the last part of the action would be Command or Control click to load it as a selection. Click on the RGB channel, and then make sure you have any selection tool chosen, and we're going to go Refine Edge. Now For now, all I would do is this. I would click on Smart Radius and move this up a little bit. I would do Shift Edge a little bit, and then end up with a layer mask, click OK, and then stop recording. So now, let's do this. Let's revert this image. Now I have this action, and it's set to run completely automatically. So if I just click on the top of it here, you can see here's my action that's called green screen, and I hit the play button, it goes like this, and in a matter of no time at all, look at that, I've already got the extracted layer with the mask. Is the mask perfect? It's actually not bad, but if it's not, the other thing is you do have the ability to go to the Properties panel, and here's our mask, and we can go back to Mask Edge and do further work. And again, all of these things will be talked about in more detail later on in some of the other lessons. Now the other option we could do, let's just do one more thing. Let's revert this one more time. Is once you've finished recording the action, you can decide after the fact, okay, I want to change things up, I want to have more control. So you see right here where it says Refine Edge, and there's a little empty box beside it. If I turn that on, here's what will happen this time when I run the action. It'll still do everything else, but when it gets to that step, it'll give me the option of saying, how would you like to refine the edge? So that means you could both move sliders and also paint in here, as we'll be talking about. So all of those things will be options. Then when you click OK, it will create the layer mask. The real reason for doing this is not when you have one photograph like this, but if you had, as I mentioned, a whole bunch. Maybe there's like a sports team and you've got 80 kids you want to take photographs of for this little league, baseball league, or whatever it might be. What's going to happen is you can run this as a batch action, which means it'll do it to a whole bunch of photographs, and most importantly, you'll end up with this, a Photoshop document with a layer mask, so then you can continue to tweak the results. And don't forget, in some of the other lessons, we'll talk in much more detail about Refine Edge and Mask Edge and so on, but this just shows you why you'd want to consider using green screen and how you can potentially automate your work thanks to an action.